one thing I want to pull up is a set of steps that parents can take that you can kind of help us understand as to acquiring an evaluation.
Okay.
So you mentioned request for evaluation. So that would be obviously the first step.
Right.
Now the 14 days of school, what are we talking about? So 14 days, what does that entail?
The 14 days are when the parent requests for evaluation. The school district or the school will have 14 days to make their decision of whether or not they are going to evaluate the child. After making that decision, then we have what we call a prior written notice, where the school have to put in writing whether or not they're going to go forth with that evaluation.
Okay, so just so I can understand, the school has to, within 14 days, give to me in writing a letter saying that they A, will evaluate my child, or B, that they won't.
Will or won't, either way.
And they have to provide a reason either way.
Right.
So like if they just say we can't evaluate your child, or we don't see anything, that all has to be in writing.
That'll have to be in writing. A lot of times when they decide to evaluate the child, they will have parent consent forms. Okay. They will also explain to the parent the domain, the areas in which they may want to evaluate the child. And then with that parent consent, the parent have to sign that right away so they can start that 60-day school day timeline.
Okay, and you just brought that up. So following the decision to proceed. So one thing you're pointing out, the timeline does not start until the parent signs the consent.
Yeah, exactly.
But what you also mentioned is that if the parent has already given consent in that initial letter, then they can just go on ahead and proceed. Is that correct? Or
usually, but sometimes the school district like to have their own forms. So the parents, you still give the school district their 14 school days to make that decision, and then after they make that decision, they will give their forms what they want for the parent consent, and the parent will sign those forms.
Okay, so just about step 1, request for evaluation. Step 2, decision to proceed. Step 3, consent to evaluate. And then the actual evaluation itself, which is the 60 school days, it must occur.
Right, within the 60 school days. So at the end of the 59 days, 60th day there, the school district should be ready to have a meeting to see whether or not the child is eligible for special education, or if the child is eligible for special education, to proceed on with having an Iep meeting or a meeting with the parents.
Okay, so let's say, the school does the evaluation, we go for, they say, IEP, your child needs an IEP, and, we're going to provide services. What happens next?
Well, they have a meeting, eligibility meeting. And the meeting is going to read all the findings. If they had a social work evaluation, the psychological evaluation, the occupational therapy evaluation, the speech pathology evaluation, and any other evaluation that was done, maybe the teacher notes, the anecdotal notes, what the teacher found, those people's going to come to the table and they're going to read their finding to the parent. They're going to listen to the findings. And then from that, all that information, the team, along with the parent, is going to decide that the child is eligible for special education services.
That sounds like a lot of good information to have. Do I get a copy of this?
Parents can ask for a copy of all the evaluation that is done on their son.
Okay, so we shouldn't assume that will automatically be given. The parents should request this, correct?
Some school districts should give out the evaluation, the copy of the evaluation, but sometimes the parent need to request for it, and they have a right to those evaluations.
Okay, so then we have the final consent to placement. Now, this is not the same form that we signed at the beginning. When we asked for the evaluation, we didn't give consent to placement yet, correct?
Right.
So at this meeting or following this meeting, you would consent to placement.
Right. At the meeting, after we have discussed the finding, if it goes smoothly and the parents agree, they will go into what we call the Iep meeting. After the eligibility meeting, sometimes the school district goes into what we forming the IEP, the services that may help the child, special education services, where the service is going to be given at, and that's where the placement come in at. We talk about whether it's going to be at the home school, what type of placement, least restricted environment, self-contained, maybe collaborating, teaching, whatever the placement is. After everyone, the team decide, along with the parent, that we all in agreement with the finding, then they'll pass a form around and the parents will sign off, giving them consent that it's okay.
Okay.